Hello, welcome to the Shelly Show. I'm Shailendra, and you're watching this simulcast live on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, everywhere. Hope you all are safe, maintaining the social distancing, and you guys are keeping close to each other, well, inside the house. Every time I get onto stage and talk AI, I'm asked one question, and that's around jobs. Will I lose my job? Will we lose jobs? What will happen to our jobs when everything is automated? So I thought we should spend more time to discuss the impact of AI on jobs. A very widely talked about number is that 30% of the jobs will be gone by 2030. That's not too far away. In today's episode, we will spend some time on the impact of AI on jobs and discuss this as I have four very special guests who've been working on AI for the past few years, and they've delivered many projects in this space. So they know what it means when it all gets automated, and they've seen the impact in those organizations where they've implemented AI projects. So here is your opportunity to ask questions to those guys directly. So all you need to do is write your question in the comment section, and we will take those questions. My first guest, and by the way, these all guests were there last week, 2 weeks ago, when we did AI on ethics. And so let's start. My first guest is Brent Schneeman. He's CEO and a storyteller. Brent is presented at the UT Mekong School, South by Southwest, NLP Day, multiple data days and various meetups. So he's a veteran in this space. He has a degree in mathematics and also in electrical engineering. So he understands how AI comes together. He lives in Texas with his wife, 3 kids, two cats, and 1 dog. Let me bring him in. Hi, Brent.
Hey,
Welcome to
Sheila.
the show.
How are you? I'm good, thank you. I'm good.
So we met 2 weeks ago, and we're just back with AI and jobs. Thank you for coming back to the show.
Oh, I'm pleasure to be here.
Perfect. Let me bring others as well. My second guest is Rudeon Snell from SAP. Rudy has a passion for solving problems using technology. He currently leads go-to-market for industries and customer advisory business across EMEA for SAP. Over 20 years of experience and worked with leading organizations like Microsoft, Deloitte, Vodafone, and many more. So let me bring him in. Hi, Rudy. Welcome to the show.
Absolutely. Thanks
How
for
are you?
having me. Good, thanks.
Welcome back. Okay, then I have Dr. Avik Sarkar. He is the former head of data analytics cell for India, and he's the officer on special duty at Niti Aayog, which is National Institute of Transformation in India. He's one of the premier policy think tanks for the government of India. So let me bring him in. Hey, Dr. Avik, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, Shailendra? Hi, Brent. Hi, Rudy. How are you doing?
Welcome back to the show.
Yes.
Finally, I have Laurence Liew, Director at AI Singapore. As Director for AI Industry Innovation, he's passionate about getting companies in Singapore to adopt AI to stay competitive and relevant. And this topic, AI and jobs, he said that is very close to his heart. So let me bring him in. Here we go. Hi, Laurence. How are you?
Hi, everyone. Thanks for getting me on the show again.
Looking very white. Good stuff. So, guys, before I start the questions, just a bit of a statement for you to watch this episode and other sessions that are on emerging technologies live. I would request you to follow me on LinkedIn, where you're watching this. If you're watching on LinkedIn, follow me on Twitter if you're watching me on Twitter, and on YouTube, subscribe to my channel and press the bell icon. This is your opportunity every time I go live to watch these guys, these leaders from the industry, and ask them questions directly. So here we go. Let's start. So what are we hearing? There is a positive and the negative around it. Let's talk about AI and jobs. It's been widely said that there will be lots of jobs gone. It will affect the job market. It is said that 70% of the jobs will be replaced by robots. And first of all, there are numbers which are very different because there are surveys which are done by different organizations. Some say 30, and they've got time frames. So 30% by 2030, then there is 70% of the jobs will be replaced by robots and whatnot. Will the jobs be replaced by robots? What do you think, guys? Let's start with Brent. Brent, what do you think?
I think it's inevitable that some of the jobs will be replaced by robots, right? As if we think, some of the like financial services, scoring for mortgages or for loans or something like that, a lot of those are going to be evaluated by machines, right? Machine learning for fraud models, risk models, and stuff like that, instead of human beings taking a look at it and scoring it that way. So, on a lot of those kind of jobs, yeah, they're definitely going to go away very, very quickly.
Okay, Rudy, what's your point? So there is one yes, Rudy.
Yeah. So if you look at the question about how AI will affect the job market broadly, I think it's important to take just a bit of a step back and acknowledge that every technology revolution in the past has caused social upheaval, right?
Mm-hmm.
So whether it's the industrial revolution of the 1760s or automation anxiety in the early 1900s, this notion of technology progress and social upheaval go hand in hand. And if we're really honest with ourselves, we have to acknowledge that AI and robotics can obliterate jobs at a scale that has never been seen before in our history, right? And then by extension, that means entire economies as well. And when we talk about jobs, the instinctive inclination is to go thinking about how blue-collar jobs will be eliminated. But actually what we're seeing is that higher level functions like analysts, stockbrokers, doctors, lawyers, these are all becoming threatened by advances in AI. I think with just a 10% increase in AI's capability, roughly 700 job types could be made redundant, right? So just take autonomous vehicles as an example. In the US alone, there's roughly 4.5 million driver jobs that could be at risk as a result of advances in that technology. So we're talking truck drivers, taxis, bus drivers, postal delivery people. And yet there's this other side to the coin where if you think about ATM introduction into society from a technology perspective, it actually created more jobs than it displaced originally, right? So there's this massive double-edged effect that exists when it comes to AI's influence on jobs, whether it's positive or negative. And I'm sure we're going to explore that in a bit more detail as we move forward with the show.
Okay. Avik, what do you think?
Yes, I guess I would agree with what Rudy was talking about. With technological revolutions, we see more job displacement happening. I would not tell job losses, but displacement. Because if you have an intelligent tool at your hand, you will tend to use it. Today, I only use the pen to write possibly my bank check. That's also very rare because all the money transfer happens mostly online. So I hardly use my skill of writing, which I have learned for the 12 years of my school life. More than 2 or 3 digit multiplication, I hardly do on paper because there is calculator with me. So if I have a tool that makes my life easier, I will adopt that. And it's not I as an individual, businesses will adopt that and organizations will adopt that, and they will try to make their processes smoother and easier, and that will lead to some losses. But then these people will then go on to do more value-added activities, and that is how we progress as a society. I think that is a very good thing. I think about the whole aspect.
Okay, Laurence, what do you think?
Yeah, so I actually like to position it slightly differently. AI, yes, some jobs will be replaced by AI and jobs will disappear. But most of it is AI will replace tasks rather than jobs per se. So, right, even as like you mentioned, reviewing of bank loans and so on, the task of that review will be replaced by AI, but that officer could move on to a bit higher value added tasks.
Mhm.
Difficult loan switcher, AI say, I have no idea.
Yes.
Can a human please take a look at it? So that
Mhm.
the bank, instead of being able to process, let's say, 30 loans per day, could actually do 300, and yet still having the same pool of people reviewing those 30 very difficult loans that you really need a human being to be involved. So I would say AI in general will replace a lot of tasks. Unfortunately, those jobs that have only a single task is highly likely to be replaced by AI. But in both blue and especially even white collar or what we now call gray collar jobs, there is still tasks that is not able to be done by any machines today, and that's where the human will have to step in.
So I'll take two comments and just explain that. Today, after such a long time, I thought, let me make some notes. So I took my paper, as you said, Avik. I took the paper and I started writing. My handwriting is horrible because I haven't written for a while. I was always
Yes.
typing, and every time I sit down on the computer, I just start typing. No computer, no writing at all. So my handwriting has gone very poor. That means that I should write more, to your point, which is true that, we'll write less and less. And I don't even sign a check. Last year, one cross check was asked a few days ago, so I had to cut that. But other than that, no checks. Rudy, you mentioned about doctors getting threatened. I think what's happening is, and I'm seeing that the doctor's job will be complemented with what AI is going to do, so that it's not any guesswork anymore, and so people are not guessing what disease you've got or what are you going through. Instead, it will look at your history, it will look at your family history, it will look at what you're doing going through the medical journals and come out and say, this is what is the possible symptom, which is showing that this is what you should be treating this individual as. So I think there is a complement of these things happening. I'm One more thing happened. I think it was in I was in Malaysia, and I was to speak at one of the events. And just before me, there was one gentleman who walked onto the stage and said, "Oh, it's all doomed. Jobs are going to go. 70% of the jobs are going to go. 30% jobs are going to stay." So I thought that he's creating a doomsday. Let's try and think about out of the box. So I turned around and walked onto the stage and said, I want to be one of those 70%, because when I lose my job, it will make me think, what new can I bring? So I want to be in that 70% so that I can create jobs for the remaining 30% and increase that. And I think that is also an important thing for us to think, that while the jobs are going away, what new jobs we should be working on. And that brings me to the next question around what is the future of jobs when AI world comes in, when we are now getting into a world of AI, what new kinds of jobs are going to be there, are going to be created. I think there is a number that is being thrown that, what was that? That in last 5 years, the jobs, 25% of the jobs that have been created didn't exist beforehand. So there are new jobs that are being created. There are people who are creating these jobs for those people who are losing the jobs as well. So I think there is a big exercise around this. As I said, I was writing, so I wrote this comment which said, automation will displace 75 million jobs. So it's doomsday. By 2022. This is World Economic Forum. It says automation will displace 75 million jobs. It is doomsday. Everyone very upset. And suddenly it says the next line, but will create 133 million jobs by the same time frame by 2022, which means that net you are having another around about 58 million jobs, new jobs that are being created, while you're losing 75 million. So the number of jobs created would be almost double the number of jobs that will be lost, which is absolutely good news. So guys, what do you think? What are the new jobs that are going to come to the market? What skills or what will be the job of future of the jobs? A future job look like? So do you guys? What do you think? Let's start with Laurence this time.
I mean, this is really a very interesting question. Very often, new jobs will be created that we haven't even thought about, right? I was, giving a lecture. This was probably about 2-3 years back, and I got a comment from a friend after attending my lecture and say, "Do you know my 2 daughters? What do they want to do after they graduate?
Yeah.
They just want to be YouTube stars."
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Right. I mean, that's a platform of technology. It's not really AI, but it's technology, right? And it has created. Who have thought that doing YouTube shows can actually make you a living? Now, very interesting on what you guys mentioned on doctors. Another comment I got was, even yes, doctors' skills, knowledge will not be replaced. They will be complemented by AI, but there is still the places in the world, in India, in Indonesia, in China, Vietnam, very large countries, very vast, where remote villages do not have access to medical doctors. Mm-hmm. And if someone spent 8 years training to be a doctor, he do not want to be posted to a remote village, right? He has spent so much money training to be a doctor. So what a new class of doctors or clinicians, right, potentially will emerge, where instead of training for 8 or 10 years, they may only train for 3 or 4 years. And then with the help of AI, they are then posted to these remote villages to render medical care for these villages. Mm-hmm. So we have to look at AI as a tool that will enhance capabilities to allow you to deliver services which was not possible before, whether because of knowledge or because of just lack of access. But today with AI, even without internet access, you could carry a very smart device with you that you could go into the jungles and so on, and then render it there and then.
Okay. Before I move on to Brent, can I ask a question to the audience? Audience, what do you think? Will you lose your job? What job do you do, and do you think that your job can be displaced? Put that in the comment section. So let's hear from the audience as well. Do you think that your job will be replaced? And if it is, then what do you do? What do you think you want to do to reskill yourself? Let's come to Brent. Brent, what do you think about the future of jobs in the AI world?
So I am totally in agreement that I think more net new jobs will be created. That is what industrial revolutions tend to do, right? It's going to be pretty traumatic, though, for the 70 million or so folks that do lose their jobs. It's not like they're going to be instantly skilled for the next job in the future, right? So there's going to be a transition period, and there's probably going to be some losers in that. Most of the folks are probably going to have to be retrained and can be retrained, which is fantastic. And so that's like a whole job right there, is teachers and explainers, in order to be able to help folks upskill their level. So I think that's a class of jobs that just the existence of AI or any revolution is going to bring onto them. Laurence's daughters want to become YouTube stars. That's kind of indicative of the digital elite. I think the folks who are more digitally savvy are going to probably have an easier time in a lot of the future roles. But also YouTube kind of is an AI job, right? YouTube, with its recommendations and its matching and its auto moderation and all of the image recognition and computer vision processing. There's a lot of AI inside of YouTube, which created YouTube, right? I mean, and even this remote video conference that we're doing right now, there's a lot of AI behind that. And then there's just a lot of the jobs that are going to be related to not only helping humans skill up, but also training the AI models themselves. Those AI models need a lot of annotated data annotation. And that is, human beings saying, this is a picture of a cat, this is a picture of a dog, and then in scale, and then being able to bring those off to the companies that need that, right? So that is a whole nother class of jobs to support the AI, which will then in turn go around and support the doctors on there. So there is an ecosystem that's being built up, a nice little vertical ecosystem to support AI. Just not everybody's going to be able to immediately take advantage of that labor of that ecosystem.
Okay, Rudy, what do you think?
Yeah. So I think since the invention of the steam engine, right, technology has displaced jobs. I mean, if we just take a look at the last 70 years, think about the jobs that have been displaced by tech, farmers, factory workers, railroad workers, hundreds of thousands of telephone operators. I think tons of jobs have died out, but work persists. And this is where it's important to distinguish between jobs and work. Jobs come and go, but the nature of work remains. And as work evolves, jobs are then reshaped moving forward. I liked Avik's example earlier about the calculator, because people didn't bother to learn multiplication and division to that level of depth. But that doesn't mean that they couldn't do math. It just means that they actually used the better tools at their disposal. And same principle applies with the washing machine and the dishwasher when that technology was invented. More time was freed up for us to do other tasks. So I think for some things, machines will be really good at, and other things, people will continue to be really good at. And what we need is to find out how we can actually develop this synergistic world where we partner with AI and achieve things that previously were not possible to unlock greater value.
Okay, Avik, what's your point of view?
Yes, so I think a lot of the points have already been covered. And that's exactly, I think Laurence made a very interesting point about India. And that's where a lot of the work that I am doing today is focused on healthcare, on agriculture. So like farmers in the remote villages, they might not talk English, they only understand vernacular language. And a very small advice to them, where they can speak to a bot in their own language, which is non-English, which doesn't have a lot of support for natural language processing or text mining, and then get advice that is fine-tuned for them. Those services which requiring AI can change their life in a very havoc manner. They can know the rates in which certain vegetables are sold, and they can take their produce and then do the harvest on that particular day when the rates are good. And this can be of huge benefit to them. And I think Laurence also talked about the other one, which is about doctors. So already nurses are doing that. Nurses are using some telemedicine devices, and some hospital chains in South India have already started that, where they're using very simple automated machines where the nurse is acting as a doctor with the help of AI. And then whenever the serious cases comes, he or she will refer to the actual doctor over telephone or over video conferencing. So a lot of these things are actually taking place, and this is actually revolutionizing the whole aspect. Access to education also, like into rural areas. And if you can have the infrastructure and technology, then you can have access to a lot of the teachers. And then, thus, in these cases, what becomes more important is that what Rudy was talking about. Say you can listen to a particular lecture or a lesson online, but then you would need possibly someone to clarify your doubts. So that's a role that will become intelligent and important. And as I think Rudy and Brent were also telling, like, this data annotation is a very important task. And this is not just for in general image things. I am working with some healthcare startups where we actually require doctors to do the annotation. It cannot be anyone who is not a non-doctor who can do the annotation. So doctors also, you can you can say today we have some doctors who are only working at the very generic level. So general physicians only say giving medicine for fever or cough or very simple stuff. So this sort of things, if they get automated, then there will be avenues for such doctors to do data annotation. It's not that they will lose their jobs, because there's a new avenue coming up where they can train the systems and make and get a lot of extra money. So there is a whole ecosystem that will be developed. I think the challenge that happens is that we always are very afraid of what's going ahead, and we don't know what's coming ahead of us, and we try to predict that thing. And when it doesn't come in the prediction, then we sort of get afraid of it. Like, say, as Laurence told, possibly like 10 years before, we didn't think that YouTubers will be earning enough money, and that's the reality now. You don't have to come from the top, but you can go from bottom up and you can become popular. The Indian perspective, and that's a thing that is which we didn't think there was a profession that will exist. So, like this, a lot of novel professions will emerge based on the dynamics of the market, based on the country where you are placed, and things of the nature. So, a lot of my expertise, I think experts will have a lot of say. And I think Laurence took one example, and this is something I again work with Singapore government, as I told last week also. This was for Singapore customs. So customs, they do a lot of automation of their services, and they previously had a system where they will do random checks of the shipments that would go through their customs. So when I was at Accenture, we developed a system for them which will give the risk rating of the shipment based on what is declared and the trader history and other things. So which are lesser risk ones would pass through, and only the high risk ones will be screened. So there was a lot of time saving and effort saving happening, because only the high risk cases were being scrutinized and opened. Otherwise, you will randomly stop all of them and check. So a lot of the shipments which are like less risk will pass through. So then the experts would come in, because these experts are required, because these are more tricky cases. So if you're an expert in any domain, I think you need not worry about things, because you will remain in your business, and then some of the low hanging fruits will get automated over time.
Okay. Before I get to my comments, there are more than 70 people who are watching us live at the moment across all the platforms. Guys, if you've got a question, please put in the comment section and I'll bring that to the guys. The other thing which I would say is to the audience, guys, if you see if you think of any job like the YouTubers, which you think is going to come up in next 4 to 5 years, then mention it in the comment section and we will see. We'll discuss about it, because this is getting quite interesting. And the reason why I'm saying it is quite interesting is because a few days ago I was talking to there was a guy who came to see me, and we just started talking about YouTube jobs and the way YouTubers are working. And I was just looking at the numbers. You know, the YouTubers make far more money. The good ones make far more money than we come from India, right? So Bollywood is quite in everyone's head. From lots of B grade, they make more money than the B grade and the C grade actors who've got nothing to do, and the kind of following they've got across the panel, they make a lot of money. So it is quite interesting that YouTubing as a new profession has come in and is just gone up there and is making a huge difference. My daughter knows, a 6-year-old knows more YouTubers than she knows actors, and she will be counting them by name. So look at the popularity of YouTubing that has happened. The second thing that came to mind when Brent was talking about training, I think we will need a different way of educating people, a different way of training, and that is very, 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 very good. And we need to figure out machine learning ways of training. And COVID has actually hit it on the head, because everyone is now at home learning on computer, which means that we not only understand how to impart that training, but we also know the data behind it and can learn from the way people are learning, so that we can retrain the models to train people, which is another way of doing things, which wasn't there up until I think last year. We didn't even ever. Well, in December, no one thought that they will be homeschooled, right. And more than half the world was homeschooled from March onwards, which is huge. So look at the amount of data that has been created, and that can be utilized for benefits. Finally, COVID, because COVID was mentioned, I had written an article about what was happening in China. What doctors and the nurses, they didn't want to expose them to the patients. So what they were doing was they created a little robot which will go and serve the patients with the medicines on regular basis. So you've got these robots who are complementing nurses and doctors at hospitals. And I think that's happening somewhere in India as well now. Avik, I think it was in South India, I heard that these guys have now created these little robots who are serving the patients in the hospital.
Yes. At the entry point, the first level of basic checkup of the temperature and taking some details has been tried out in some hospitals.
Yep. Okay. Having said that, I must say one job that is likely to go, and that is the job of a receptionist at the hotel. I think that's a redundant job. Well, not always, but it is a redundant job, because when you walk into the receptionist, I think most of those jobs you could do yourself. And, once upon a time, I used to go to the receptionist and ask, where is this place? I don't ask that question ever again, because now you've got a Google map in your hand and you know where to go. No matter you are in whatever country, you can reach that place without asking anyone. So I think things are changing, and the jobs are changing as well. So guys, for you guys who are watching the show, please ask your questions now. We will ask the guys the question, and also please tell us if you think that your job will be replaced, and what are the skills that you see what are the jobs that are going to be appearing in the next coming days. And that brings us to skilling people. So how do I prepare for the AI world? Does that mean I need to learn Python, R, and all those Scala, all those languages? What do I need to do? How do I reskill myself? And I'm not talking about programmers only. I'm talking about a farmer. I'm talking about a mother at home who has never used a computer ever. So how do I reskill myself? Let's have a thought about that. So guys, let's start with Avik this time. Avik, what do you think?
So again, I'll take the calculator examples. How many of us know how to make a calculator?
Yeah.
At least I don't. So we have to enable the world to use the AI technology, and there will be more users. So maybe 95% of the people will be users of AI, and only 5% will be making the AI. And out of that also, there will be different grades of people. Some of them who will be developing this TensorFlow or those sort of packages in the algorithm. Then this layer of people using Python, R, and these languages who will be using these packages for serving customers. So they will understand maybe 50-60% of the domain, and then maybe 40% 50-60% of the technology, and maybe 40% of the domain. And then there will be more of the customer facing or the client who understand the domain, maybe 80%, and only 20% of technology. There will be storytellers who have to communicate the insights that come out of AI and present them for business making. That is a very, very rare skill in India, at least, because storytelling has a lot to do with understanding the deep domain expertise. And as Sailendra will understand very well, in India, I think understanding technology is considered a very cool thing as compared to understanding a domain. So if you are if you understand agriculture, okay, you are just an agriculture expert or a medical IT expert. But if you then understand the technology, the Python and the R part, then you are like a more cooler person per se. And then the data entry aspect and the support and then the whole range of jobs. I think out of the AI jobs also, I think only 3 to 4 out of 10 jobs will need to know the Python aspects. And this out of the overall AI thing, I think only 5 to 10% of the 5% of the people, I think, will be requiring to develop the AI. The rest, I think, enable the system. Like if you are driving a self-driving car, you should know how to read the alarms and alerts so that you know well ahead when to take control of the car. I think that is, and you should get equipped with that aspect of the thing. Like say when we are using the laptop and we know the laptop is heating up, when to put it to rest, when to get the updates done. So these are things that the general population needs to know in their field of business.
Yep. One thing that comes to mind is, and I think that is an example that I always give, is that, my mother, she's not very, as like our all mothers, they don't have a very good way of using mobile phones. But since the WhatsApp came in, she can use WhatsApp, she can type, and she can do everything because, it is training her mind so quickly that it has changed her life as well. So, Rudy, what do you think about this? And I'm not only talking about the programmers who actually change who write code. I'm talking about a man walking on the street. How does he reskill himself? How does he think differently so that he educate himself and get trained to compete in the new world?
Yeah. So I think the first thing, the way I would come at it is, the first thing we need to be clear about is understand where you are vulnerable first, right? If your job doesn't require some form of uniquely human skill like creativity or innovation, and has a high focus on repetitive, easily automated tasks, I think Laurence mentioned this earlier, the company actually then just has a higher ROI by automating your job rather than hiring or keeping the human employee. That's simple economics, right? So address where you are vulnerable by exposing yourself to new types of skills that are that people are willing to pay for. So that's one of the key things actually that makes us so proudly human, is our ability to be adaptable and learn new things. And I like where Avik is coming from with regards to, let's not be too eager to jump on this AI bandwagon and race to develop AI dev skills. Because what's really important is understanding how to use AI to drive outcomes. So I like to use the microwave example. I see Avik has a calculator flavor to it. If you think about who are able to build commercially ready microwaves just on this call, who understands it well enough to do that? Nobody. But if you ask us who has not used a microwave, all of us has used a microwave. And why do you use something that you don't understand? Because you actually trust the outcomes and you're more focused on the outcomes. And AI is a lot like that. We need to shift our thinking to think about it from an outcomes-based perspective, as opposed to thinking about it from a, getting your hands dirty and doing the coding forward. That'll help create just exponentially more new capabilities than before.
Okay. Brent, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm hearing some really good comments here. I think that one of the, to go along with, humans, one of human superpowers of human beings is being adaptable, right? If the man on the street really wants to help protect him or herself from the future, then assume that you're going to be disrupted, right? And embrace that disruption, right? Try to be part of that 70%. Adapt more of a growth mindset, and expect to be disrupted. I think AI and automation in general, especially electronic enabled automation, is going to disrupt faster, right? Things are accelerating, things are becoming more and more dated quicker. And so being able to expect that, oh yeah, I'm going to be disrupted. The way, not my job necessarily, but my way of life, right? That's not a human being behind that car that's in front of me. That's a robot. What do I have to do different to understand how the robot is going to avoid me, hitting me and stuff like that? So just those simple things. The flip side of a lot of that is, there's going to be not everybody needs to learn how to train a neural net, right? Or design a neural net. That's just not everybody needs to do that. But in order to enable that future, we also have to put a lot of thought into the design of AI enabled products, right? And so that the human computer interface is really trivial and really obvious for people to know how to do it, right? I can put something in a microwave, push a couple of buttons, and now I've got a hot cup of soup. I can, calculate something on a calculator without having to go through a lot of programming to do it. But that's because the UX, the user experience, is so easy for individuals to be able to bring on. And so it's the people, that are going to get disrupted. But from the folks who are designing the products, they can help with that disruption by making it easier to use those products.
Okay,
Yes.
Laurence?
And I completely agree. Just want to add to one
Okay.
what Brent was telling. I think completely agree to what Brent is telling. And I had some friends when I was doing my PhD in UK who had worked from the 60s, and they have been programming since the 60s, and they used to boast of carrying a whole bag of punch card with them. I have not seen myself. I was not fortunate. But then even during my time, when I started, there were only a few languages, like Fortran was the only one when I was growing up in schools and colleges I had. And then Java and all came much later. And now we have Python and Perl and R, which are making things much more easier. So I think these things have to become more user-friendly. I think even from the programming side, we are seeing this because things are becoming user-friendly. And the UX element is very, very crucial. Whether it makes your life easier or not, it has to be understandable, easy, and cheap. I think those are the key elements.
And before I get to Laurence, just one comment. Talking about cheap, when I started my career in 1996, I say that in almost every session. I started my career in 1996, 97. One part of SAS was $250,000 to write any kind of analytics code, which is the core of AI. Today, R is free. So technology is free. Everyone has a laptop or a machine. We didn't have a laptop. It was so hard to get something. Now it's available free for you guys, and it's all, how do you reskill yourself? So Laurence, what is your point of view on this?
Yeah, so it's really important to stress that everybody can use AI, and in fact, those that have internet access is already using it. And from a UI UX perspective, I think nothing is more elegant than the Google search bar.
Yep.
Okay, very simple. Everybody knows how to use it. The key point is you can be a user, but not everybody needs to be trained as a Python programmer to use AI, right? You just need to be able to use the tools that have been created by programmers, by application developers, and so on. They will hide the complexity of AI from the day-to-day users. Another example I want to bring up is that in terms of what you need to, how you need to reskill yourself, how you need to, what are things you need to learn, not necessarily is about Python programming. So, for example, I was speaking to a lawyer a couple of years back, and he was saying that during his time, probably about 20 years ago, out from law school, they, as junior lawyers, they have to spend hours in their firm's library to dig through past history of cases and so on, and then after a couple of days, emerge from the library and then generate this report to the senior lawyer to say, okay, these are all the cases and how it was won and so on and so forth. Today, there are tools that allow you to get that in 30 seconds. So the skills that the lawyer used to need to learn goes away. He no longer have the skill of searching through cases. He only needs to press library. So what it means is that the new skill that he needs to have now is to analyze the output of that AI and say, does it make sense? Can I do better? Are there things that the AI has missed? So these are high order thinking that the human can do. The boring stuff of doing search and matching and so on, if we can automate it, let's automate that. So even in the university, the way that we're going to train graduates, students, we have to take into account where AI is going to be a major part of this new world. Today, do you still need to remember lots and lots of facts? Not really, right? With a search engine, whether is it Google or Bing and what have you, search and everything is there. But what's the skills that's important is knowing how to search, how to analyze, and how to make sure that what you are reading is not fake news.
Yep. I get your point. Actually, to be honest, when you mentioned that, I was smiling because long time ago, I think it was around about 2000, before 2000, one of my uncle, who's a lawyer, who was a lawyer, retired now, he asked me, Shelley, if you could put all the law books into a computer and let me ask a question and it answers, it'll be a great thing to do. Can you do that? And I laughed at him and said, well, you're looking for what, a computer or a magic box? And the reality is that magic box exists today, wherein, all the law books of any country, and I think, and I will be blatantly promoting SAP here, we've built an environment where we've put in all the, in a particular country, all the law books there, and the government, anyone can actually ask questions to understand, how the law is working. And similarly for doctors, where all the journals are put into a medical forum, and someone can ask questions so they would know what happened 100 years ago or 150 years ago, which a human brain cannot keep to their brains and think about it. And even looking through books would take ages to find it, where you, Laurence, you said rightly, could take 30 seconds to get an answer, even less than 30 seconds to get an answer. So absolutely, that is where it is all getting towards, which means, and that's a very pertinent question I would like to ask, is AI a boon or a detriment to jobs? So is it going to impact jobs in a way that the jobs itself are going to change? What is it going to look like? Thoughts? And I will start with Rudy this time.
So this is a great question, right? Here's how I come at it. New technology generally creates jobs in two ways. So there's the direct jobs for people who design and maintain the new technology, and sometimes whole new industries get created as a result. So think about airlines, automotives, telco, and then there's the indirect way technology actually creates new jobs. So when companies are able to do more with less, they can then expand, they can go into new locations, they create new lines of business, new products and services, they can lower prices, and all of this actually has the ability to create more jobs. Now, you alluded to this earlier, Shaylee, in terms of the economic theory, that is that there's an offsetting effect when it comes to the total number of jobs in the economy. So yes, technology does displace jobs susceptible to automation, but then it also creates new jobs, right?
Yep.
That is the common view. My challenge that I always have with that is that it's an incomplete view, because what happens is actually what we call the gap theory. And Brent made mention of this in a specific way earlier. When we talk about the gap theory, you need to understand it across a three-tiered paradigm. So there's the time gap, there's the geographic gap, and then there's the skills gap. So what I mean by that is that there's no guarantee that as jobs get displaced and new jobs become available, that they would be made available immediately from a timing perspective, right? There's also no guarantee that where jobs get displaced, new jobs will become available at that same location. So think about developing countries versus developed countries. So that's the geographic gap. And then from a skills gap perspective, there's absolutely no guarantee that as jobs get displaced, workers will have the requisite skills to actually seamlessly transition into the new jobs that have been created. So what we need to focus on very clearly is that how we manage this gap theory to ensure that, you know, the maximum benefit of this technology is realized while we minimize the risks posed. And that's, for me, is the key to how AI will actually influence jobs long term.
Brent, what do you think?
You know, I think that Rudy's got it spot on there, right? I think long term, yes, AI is going to be a boon for jobs, just like every revolution, economic revolution that and not even industrial, right? Just new economic theories have come out that have made things more efficient, that have created new economies, new jobs, new markets, and stuff like that. I love the framing of the gap theory. I hadn't heard it talked about that way, and I think that's exactly correct, right? Just because, you know, my job goes away, it's going to be replaced by some other job out there, but I might not have the skills in the right time in the right place to take advantage of that new job. And people have to, there are going to be, like I said earlier, there are going to be losers in that. There's just going to be some folks that just are going to be hurting from there. But society as a whole is going to move forward with the revolution.
Okay. Before I get to Laurence this time, I would like to say that there are more than 60 people watching us, guys. You've got a question. This is your time to ask the question. We just two questions from me away, and then we will be getting into audience questions. So please put your questions into the comment section, and we'll take it from there. So Avik, what is your thought on this?
Yes, so I think exactly what I think Rudy was talking about. I think the gap exists. And that is one of the major reasons. And if you look at the jobs are not at one end of the spectrum. It starts education, and when what are children taught? If we leave out the other aspect that Rudy talked about, the geography and the other ones. So what are we taught? We are still taught things which are pretty old. So the whole curriculum has to change for the AI world, and that would not happen so fast. I think that is a fear. Even at least for India, it will not happen so fast. But another thing I'll also link to is the 21st century learning skills. If you see, and in the competencies section, you will see a lot of things like critical thinking, problem solving, creativity, communication, collaboration. No automation can take this away.
No.
However automation you do, you cannot bring creative thinking, collaboration, and these aspects will remain. And these are if you see that pillar of 21st century learning skills, and if anyone is listening can just Google that term, and you can see, I think these are very core elements to do any jobs. And on top of that comes that subject thing, whether you're learning healthcare or agriculture or education or technology. So the core skills, if you have, then you need not worry about losing jobs at all.
Okay, and I totally agree with you on this, Avik, because I think the way we teach our children needs to change. And I'll give you a very classic example here. 2 years ago, I was looking to get my elder daughter into high school. And, here in Australia, they do a presentation to the parents that this is what they're going to do and this is how they're going to teach. So my qualifying question for the principals was, the jobs that you're going to train my daughter does not exist today. How are you going to prepare her for the job that you don't know is there today? And there was one guy who actually answered the question in a way I wanted that answer to be, and that was about creativity. I want your daughter to be creative enough to be able to cope with any kind of a situation and deal with it and become creative enough so that the automated job does not take it away. And Avik, you and me work for Accenture, and me being on the onshore side of things, when I meet my clients, the first thing they say is, "Oh, we need to offshore." Offshore means we need to take away that job which is done by the mundane jobs done by my employee who can add more value, taken away from him and sent back to India or Philippines or wherever you want to. And then, these guys can add value. And I think that opens up the whole Pandora box on the reskilling of the individuals so that they can add value to the organization than just doing the mundane in and out jobs.
Very true. Completely agree. Yes.
Yep. So, Laurence, what do you think about this?
Yeah. So another dimension to think about this is this, right? AI will not replace jobs. AI will actually allow your competitor or someone to replace your job if you do not have AI. So think of an engineer and another engineer that has learned a new skill that leverages newest tools that uses AI and so on. And if an employer were to want to make a hiring decision or fire decision, who do you think he will hire? So I like the way the panel frame that you have this human creativity and so on as part of your knowledge or as part of the worker's knowledge. Then this other part that is the mundane, very repetitive type. Now that can be easily automated away, but as you add new skills, right, powered by AI or not, that's what's going to enable you to get to new roles and new jobs. So I have a slide in my presentation that I always flash to. If it's a lawyer, it will say, AI will displace lawyers. Then later I will cancel it out and I say, lawyers who uses AI will displace lawyers, or engineers who uses AI will displace engineers.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, and I think just to piggyback on what Laurence is saying, I think that those lawyers that are using AI, they now have extra bandwidth to connect with their customers closer, and it's that human touch that AI is not going to be able to disrupt. And so the more we can, the more that we have time to like connect with each other at a human scale, at a human level, that's why the AI, the folks who are enabled by AI are going to displace the folks who are not enabled by an AI.
No, definitely. I think that is going to make a huge difference. So let's think about some positives as well. And we have talked about the numbers at a very high level, but just imagine we've got a management, an enterprise management, which is very automated. So are we looking at a management-free organization? And if it is, then isn't the speed to decision will be very quick? So you don't have to wait. It'll be on facts and someone is taking a decision right very quickly. Judgment will be unbiased because, it is factual based and there is no judgment where someone is going to take a bias on one side or the other side. It is going to be unbiased judgment. And it will be measuring entrepreneurial thinking on, how do you think about getting an outcome than, putting an emotion behind it and so forth. So what is your thought about a management-free organization where we are heading towards, where there will be less emotion attached than putting in a whole lot of people sitting in a room and taking a decision or not taking a decision and deciding about the next meeting that they're going to have. What do you guys think? And I think Avik laughed on this because this is a joke we have every time in India. We had a very good meeting to discuss the agenda for the next meeting and the time and date for the next meeting. I think that all drama will be gone. What do you think about this, Avik?
So I think with the COVID scenario coming in, I think a lot of those meetings have anyway gone, because here we are scheduling only very fixed meetings with the agenda. Those meetings which had no agenda sort of things have sort of gone. And again, it comes to the main thing, like if there are mundane decisions, more straightforward in manner, I think that can be automated. But then again, there will be complex decision, complex planning operations, say your sales or your planning for the next year, or some complex architecture design for a technical thing. I think those will still remain. Again, I think what AI will start to do is only take up some of the low-lying aspects from the system. But I think that the other ones where it requires creativity, the human empathy and other things, I think they will remain. Okay.
Do you want to add to it, Laurence?
Well, I think the AI-powered CEO is still very far away. So I think management will stay. We'll be around for a long time.
Brent?
I would love to have fewer meetings, especially the mundane ones that are going on, right? The management ones. My sense is that we probably won't have fewer meetings. Just as individuals will skill up, I think our meetings and the way we collaborate will also skill up, and the meetings that we have will probably be, I would hope, in a positive future, those meetings would be more about, hey, let's try to innovate, let's collaborate, let's try to take what we're doing and get further along, rather than decide whether or not we should, charge a penny or 2 pennies for this widget, something like that, right? Mm-hmm. That's what I'd like to see happen.
Rudy?
Yeah. So look, I think ultimately as human beings, we're social animals, right? We crave this belonging and this part of a cohesive collective. And even in our decision making, we like to pretend that we're beings of logic and reason, but actually we're driven by emotional needs, and we justify that through logic and reason, right? So I don't think that there will be a complete displacement in the near future. I think there will be a high level of collaboration. So what we see in leadership practices at present is that the hard leadership skills are now taking a back seat as a result predominantly of AI development, and the soft leadership skills are rising. So, where in the past we had a big focus on number crunching and data synthesis and data analysis, to make you effective in terms of a leader. Now what we see is this rise in empathy, emotional awareness and intelligence, creativity, vision, collaboration, communication capabilities, etc. So there's going to be an evolution of leadership practices, and it's about the synergistic relationship that we have with technology to drive better outcomes. I still maintain that nothing is as beautiful to me as envisaging a multitude of delightful possible futures, picking the most amazing ones, and then pulling our present forward to meet that future through the use of technology. And that's a distinctly human trait that we still have.
Okay. So to the audience, can I ask you this question? What do you think? If you had an opportunity to work for a management-free organization, I know most of the people who are watching this, who come from the corporate world, will be having a laugh. That's not, but would love to have that. What do you think? Do you see that with, as Laurence mentioned, AI-assisted CEO? If you had an AI-assisted CEO, would you be happy with that, or were you happy with the man who's and a management who's taking all those decisions, or not taking those decisions, whatever it is? Where do you see yourself? Okay. Yep.
Sorry, just before we step off the point, just in closing, it's also not as far-fetched as what we think it is. So I think, and I must just recall properly now, so Scandinavian tech firm Tietro, they actually appointed the first AI, but I think it was called Alicia T. And she was actually empowered to lead a business unit as part of their ELT, right? And she was able to make decisions as a fully functional member of the ELT. And then I think Laurence might know, but is it Singaporean or Hong Kong? No, it's Hong Kong-based Deep Knowledge Ventures, I believe, that in 2014 also appointed an AI algorithm to their board of directors and empowering it with the ability to make investments into startups completely just like any other board member. So again, what we'll see is this evolution of humans needing to understand, how do they manage AI? How do they work with AI forming part of their team? And thirdly, how do they react to being managed by AI? And that's where it's really going to start getting interesting. Sorry, I just wanted to add that point.
Good stuff. Thank you, Rudy. So guys, any questions, put that in the comment section. This is really hot topic, and the way I'm looking at the numbers there, we've got a few questions to get through. But before I get to the last question, before I get to the audience questions, last question for you guys: will robots take over? So very soon, is it going to be that robots are going to be walking around? How are you going to see this look like in 5 years' time or 10 years' time? And I will start with Avik this time.
I guess it will be good. They can do a lot of the mundane activities that are there around us. Very, very targeted tasks they can definitely do well, like say getting groceries and stuff. So I think that is something that robots can do pretty well. And yes, again, I think it will free up a lot of our time for doing certain activities. I think robots are also helpful in a lot of the scenarios where it is not safe for humans to work. And those scenarios, if robots are working, then that's also good for the people. They will remain safe.
Okay, Laurence.
I guess I'll expand the definition of robots to be just even to include software, right? And in a way, today, every one of us is already using and being assisted by robots, right? I think it was Rudy's earlier comment, right? Today, if you want to, you go to a new place, you don't even need to ask the receptionist anymore. You take out your smartphone, you key in, and it tells you where to go, where's the best pub, where's the best stick you can get, and so on and so forth. So it is already here. Has it taken over? No, it complements our lifestyle today.
Okay, Brent?
Yeah, I think robotic process automation (RPA) that's a thing. There's a lot of it out there. That's a reality. I do believe that robots taking over or robots becoming autonomous enough to be at a point where they could take over. That's probably still in the realm of science fiction and philosophy. That is in reality.
Yeah.
Rudy?
Yeah. So I think this whole notion about artificial intelligence versus human intelligence is the wrong debate that we're having, right? I come at it from an angle like augmented human intelligence is the key to a brighter future. How we partner with AI for a better tomorrow, that's really what's going to unlock a lot of value for us moving forward. As human beings, we are terrible at exponential thinking because we're actually wired to think linearly. Just Laurence's earlier example of his daughters wanting to be YouTube stars. We would have never thought about that 20, 30 years ago. So no one really knows what the influence of AI will be on jobs, whether it be a boon or a detriment. What we do know is that, like all technologies that have come before it does displace jobs in the short term. It also creates jobs directly and indirectly in the longer term. But we must be very conscious of the fact that even though it does create this wealth, it is not always equally distributed across the economic spectrum. So middle and low level incomes have stayed flat as economies have grown. And even if AI just has a little impact on our economy, the economic inequality that could potentially exponentially increase, just raising the gap between the haves and the have-nots even further.
Okay. Thank you, guys. Let me very quickly get on to the audience questions, and this is the time for us to get to the questions. So let's very quickly get there. There are quite a few questions, so let's go one by one very quickly. Okay. Okay, I will skip some specific questions. Okay, let's go. The first question is on LinkedIn by Senghui So, and he says, depending if it's journal AI, weak AI, or AlphaGo Zero AI, it's about city versus city competition in the near future. That's a comment from Senghui So, and he's regular on the show. So tell us, guys, what do you think? Is it going to be city versus city competition?
So the way I would look at it is, so firstly, what we're talking about here predominantly still is artificial narrow intelligence. We are not yet in the capability of getting to artificial general intelligence. So that's the first thing we need to be clear of. So AI is generally specifically good at one specific task of something, right? Then when we talk city versus city or country versus country, I think Laurence would probably be very familiar, as well as Avik, with Kai-Fu Lee's AI superpowers. So you look at the rise of nation states like the US and China and Singapore in terms of AI capability. I look at it from the perspective is the world will evolve into two distinctly different societies. There will be those that shape the future by creating new AI and capabilities, and those that consume it. And we must be careful about how we manage this master-slave relationship and how that then gets evolved moving forward.
I'm worried about that last comment, master-slave relationship. That's not.
Yes.
Yeah, it's what will happen if you think about the we can term it however we like, but if you think about the creators of AI and the users of AI, you ultimately have a relationship where one shapes the future of of where this technology is moving towards, and the other one is actually at the mercy of those that that create it, right? That's just how I think about it.
So Avik, coming from India, I think our caste system is going to be replaced by AI creators and AI consumers. Is that what you're saying?
See, I will agree to some aspect with what Rudy is talking about. If I take a parallel example for the automobile industry, there are only a handful countries which make cars, and they are mostly controlling the global logistics industry. I think what is even more important, and if you talk of cars in the past, they didn't collect so much of the user data. I think if we go on to this AI stuff and they become more platforms, and instead of giving us only the source code that we deploy maybe in a country, if it's connected to a home platform, I think that is then the master-slave relationship will become more evident and more prominent, because they will have more control on those things. Like, say, what is happening with connected cars now. Say, if we talk about cars 10 years back, you sell me a car and I have complete control over it. But today what is happening is that a lot of the data in my car is getting written back to the central servers, and that is happening for a lot of the online platforms, which mostly the US companies are managing and owning. And if that happens for the AI platforms also, like, you come to know what sort of algorithms are run using TensorFlow or Kafka or some of these platforms, and that is where the fear will be. But I think there will be new laws that will evolve, like the data privacy laws is one of them, which will take care of some of those aspects. But I think the world will re-normalize itself. It cannot go on for a very long time if, say, people realize that things are happening. Now, say, what is happening with, say, Huawei and the 5G instrument. So the world is coming to a new normal, and they will rebalance itself.
Okay, Laurence?
Yeah, I don't think it's so much, especially in today's age, it's not so much of a city versus cities. Often it's actually corporations versus corporations, and the fact that the corporation is based in the US or China or Singapore, that's what the type of competition and you see. I think a very good example, not really to do with AI, but if you look at the COVID-19 situation, Google and Apple has gotten together to do the contact tracing, the Bluetooth enablement of their app, but not all countries are going to adopt that. And just this week, Singapore government announced that they're just going to issue everybody a Bluetooth device, so that you can, it's not mandatory. If you want, you can carry it, so that contact tracing can happen. And therefore break the power or the monopoly that these big corporations have over countries. So I won't look at it as a city versus city. The technology rests with the big corporations, especially AI.
Okay.
Yeah, we cannot think about doing that in India with that big population.
Now, I'll tell you one more thing that comes to mind. That will mean that someone else will decide my holiday plans as well. So, for example, and you were mentioning the automotive example, Avik, and if you look at it, if my car company controls the data that I've got in my car, and my car is not, car has got a problem with the tire, then before I'm leaving for a long drive, I may get a text saying, well, your car is not going to reach that destination. Please bring it to the service station before you send it, before you go for a drive, which means that if I plan something, my plans are now dependent on someone else, not myself, which were, because if you'd taken that risk, you would have gone half the way maybe, or taken that risk and gone to the destination you were planning to, but now it's defined or controlled by someone else.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
I think part of the controlling interest, right? Something that moderates that, if we buy into the hypothesis that the jobs of the future are going to be the higher touch human relationship jobs, where I'm more connected to my customer, then all of a sudden the customer's voice is actually going to be very loud in steering the direction of product and AI in the future, right? And so it won't be, what I'm hearing a lot of is a kind of an adversarial relationship between AI producers and consumers, and I'm not so sure that adversity will exist, right? I think if AI enables more human touch, then maybe we don't have to worry, we don't have to fear that so much.
Okay, very quickly, I think we spent too much of time on this. Julio Osorio, hi Julio, how are you? He says, 15 years in IT, how should I start a new career in data science? I will take that question to Avik and then possibly Brent.
So 15 years in IT, yes. So I think that you are very well suited, because things like programming is something that you can do in your dreams, possibly by now, because you have spent that much of time. It's more getting that flavor of handling data and working with data. I think, and then the IT systems, you can then apply your learnings from to programming, where you then analyze the data and look at the data, and then it's all more like logical flows of data, where you need to transform it from one form to other form to do a particular activity. So it should be very easy for you to pick up data science, because it's very procedural and logical things in nature.
Brent?
Yes, I actually made the transition to data science at about the same number of years. The yes to everything that Avik said. You know, if you've been 15 years in IT, I'm assuming you know how to program, you know how to tickle APIs. That's fantastic. I think the only one of the big mental things that you might want to think about is thinking less in terms of heuristics, right? If this, then that, and more in terms of probabilistics and distributions of data, right? If you can think more in terms of, it's not always going to be black or white, but there's always going to be a shade of gray. That's going to help out a lot in transitioning to data science.
One advice I would give you from my experience, you should go back and open your statistics book and start reading that now. If you want to have that transition, it might take you another 6 months to 8 months to actually get all the aspects of that, so that when you get your first job and you start doing hands-on work, it's easier and not that difficult for you. Okay. Next comment is from Mathli Sharma. Hi Mathli, how are you? She says, much needed interaction. Thank you very much. Next comment from Sang Hui So. He says, job will be much nearer to home. Focus on customer service and quality. That's going to be there. Totally agree with you on that. I'm not sure about jobs be much nearer to home, possibly work from home. I don't know. But, you know, I think focus will be on customer service and quality for sure. Okay. Next comment is from Abhinav Kumar, and he says, no intelligence can replace human brain. I think we all agree with that. No intelligence can replace human brain. We do talk about artificial intelligence, but artificial intelligence, I'm worried about human intelligence than artificial intelligence, which is very rare these days, but anyways. And to continue with that, Abhishek Khare says, balance is a must. Yes, of course, balance is a must. Then human brain produces thoughts faster and can solve problems. Abhinav Kumar. Anyone wants to add to this comment, guys?
Yes, I think that is where we are talking about the aspect of creativity.
Yep.
Produce thoughts is the creativity and problem that I just alluded upon some time back. So these are skills that are very difficult for machines today. Maybe it's another 20, 30 years of research, and we can think about this aspect's been done, the creative aspect's been done by machines.
Okay.
We are still not there.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah. So I just want to add, right? One thing that I always like to bring the audience attention to is that AI is still just maths today, and AI basically allows you to do things a lot faster. But in the first place, it must be able to be analyzed by humans. Just that maybe if you put a human at it, he may take weeks or months, but AI can do it in a few seconds because it's a machine. So it's not a black box. It's not a black magic. You just can't throw a bunch of data at it and hope that it will generate some answers. So creativity and so on, those are still the domain of the humans.
Okay. Pramod Sharma, hi Pramod, how are you? He says AI doesn't replace jobs but tasks. Can explain it in detail. Now,
Yeah.
I don't know about the last comment, but the first comment, guys, at the moment, my view is, at the moment, it's replacing tasks, but very soon it will replace jobs. But, Laurence, you want to add something to it?
Yeah, so I made that comment, and what I normally like to say is today, most of us, you used to go into the office, but today you work from home. But let's say you start your day at 9 o'clock. Throughout the day, you are going to execute different tasks. You still have one job, but you have many different tasks that you need to do. And 30 years ago when I started work, one of the tasks that I used to do when I get into the office was to clear my emails of spam. Today, do any of you actually clear emails that are spamish? No, it's already automatically cleared by the AI system into your spam box. That's it. So that task has disappeared. It doesn't mean that your boss will say, okay, since you don't need to clear spam, you can start work at 9:30. No, you still start at 9 o'clock. Just that you start doing other higher value added tasks at 9 instead of clearing spam from your email system. So those tasks that are very boring, very mundane, will be automated away, AI or not, and frees up your time to do a lot more useful, higher value added tasks.
Yeah. And there are some jobs that are just basically a sequence of tasks strung together, and AI is going to, or automation is going to replace each one of those. And so those kind of jobs will be eliminated. But that's just an aggregation of task elimination, not a job elimination.
So I would just piggyback onto that comment and say, when we talk about the elimination of tasks, eventually that results in the elimination of jobs. So think about Amazon's cashierless stores, right? You actually have a traditional teller that sits and rings up your stuff as you walk through a cashier. That has been replaced. So if you think about, Laurence is spot on. If you think about the tasks, or a job being a collection of tasks, if you get to a stage where AI replaces enough of those tasks, that means the job actually falls away. So that's just something to be cognizant of.
Well, I'll put it in a different fashion. A job is a group of tasks in a company. A particular job is what are the tasks that you need to do. So if you're able to remove 75% of that task, I think that job does not exist, because the remaining 25% can be distributed elsewhere. I think that is where we are getting towards, and it is the percentage of the tasks that can be automated and then can't be, and that leads to the foundation of mundane jobs or mundane tasks that need to be moved out into an automated environment. Okay, next question is from Dr. Jagreet Kaur Gill. Hi, Dr. Gill, how are you? And she says, humans have to be more smarter than robots to compete with them. Only those jobs can survive who can handle robots. What do you think?
So I think this is how we transition into this notion of augmented human intelligence, right? So again, let's be careful about this debate of this adversarial construct of human intelligence versus artificial intelligence. Let's see how we can synergistically leverage this new tool to then unlock value for us moving forward.
Mm-hmm. Laurence, Brent?
No, I don't look at it as competing, right? I mean, today, if you want a piece of information, you just search for it on the internet and you get it in less than a second. 30 years ago, you need to change, get out of the house, go to the library, spend a couple of hours there, and then come back and then write your report. AI and it's really a tool, right? That anyone can use, and you don't need to be a programmer, right? Leverage it as a tool to enhance your life. So I wouldn't see it like what Rudeon said. No, it's not competition. It's really a tool.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Next question, next comment is Dr. Jagreet Kaur Gill again. She says, in agriculture, we have to use explainable AI where they can get explanation of analytics. Avik, you want to have a go at that?
Yes, I think at times when we are working with agriculture advisory services, and you are giving advice to say farmers, or even in say healthcare, where you are giving some recommendations, and there is a doctor in the loop. The doctor needs to understand why a certain diagnosis has been done or certain medicine is prescribed. So just a black box approach is often not possible. So you need to give a lot of reasoning that will help, that will first give confidence of the doctor or the farmer that the decision the person is giving is correct, and also it helps you in cross checking the decision that and the recommendation that has been made. So in a certain case, say you can tell that instead of in the agriculture example, as she has asked agriculture, so the harvest date is suggested so and so because the rain is starting. There has been a rainy spell for the last 7 days, and if you leave it for another 2 days, then your crops will get bad. Maybe this sort of description, if that can be given, then it helps the farmer. Okay, the person who is giving me recommendation is not giving me some random recommendation, like with the recommendation and the probability value to the end of it. That's what we are used to seeing mostly when we look at AI. It's mostly a confidence score, but it has to be made more explainable, and that becomes easy to consume. But then, as we talk today, a lot of the deep learning algorithm explainability doesn't exist. So you have to either strike a call, or you use good old days decision tree algorithms, which are very, very explainable, or you do the deep learning neural nets, and then you build something on top of it for the explanatory part. And it depends from application to application. If you're doing photo tagging, you don't need to worry. If my picture matches with my picture and the recommendation comes, there is no explanation required, because yes, based on the historic data, this picture is of Avik, or this picture is of Sailesh. That is what is coming. So in a lot of the cases, it's not there. So you have to also see whether the business process requires an explanation or not. Not that all algorithms require explanation. So there, I think we have to take from the business process. We have to also see what if a wrong explanation is given. What are the costs for that? I think all this have to be taken into consideration, and based on that, you have to take a call about how much time and effort you spend on generating the explanation.
Okay. Anyone wants to add something, or should I move on? My personal view on that is that if it is neural nets, most of it is not explainable at the moment, and there is no reasoning behind it that we can explain. Whereas if it was our good old decision tree, as you mentioned, or a regression model, you can actually explain that very easily. So it depends on where you're playing it and what you're doing. And some are visual explanations, some are not. So yeah, it depends, and it's across the board. It's not only in agriculture. I think it's across the board to build that confidence and the trust amongst the consumer from the producer aspect of it. Okay, next is Dr. Jagreet Gill again, and she says, in healthcare, responsible AI should be introduced as it is a sensitive area. My personal view is it's not only healthcare; it's everywhere. Unless you build that confidence and the consumer knows and is that you are a responsible organization, that trust won't build. And if that trust doesn't build, that consumption won't happen at scale. And I think it is very important for that trust to be built. Healthcare more so, because lives are at risk. So it needs to be done very sensitively, as you mentioned. Okay. There is a question very particular from Mandar Telele. Hi Mandar, how are you? He says, sir, what is situation automobile industry in next few months? Anyone wants to have a go at it? You can decline the question. It's against the topic. But anyone, Avik, you want to go?
No? I think is he talking about the COVID scenario? And
yeah, I think he's talking about the COVID scenario and how it is.
I think that has nothing to do with AI. So Mandar, you can write to us and we can discuss about it.
Yep. Okay, perfect. Next is Seng, who is so on LinkedIn, and he says it's about speed of transaction to meet daily demands. Absolutely, and that's why AI is coming into, or the whole concept of artificial intelligence is coming into play. So that's good. Well said. Next question is a bit, and I was looking at it. It started a discussion on the channel. So let's look at this. Lisa New. Hi, Lisa. How are you? Thank you for kickstarting the conversation. I'm in the business of developing explainable AI that brings all stakeholders together in real time, interactively, peer reviewing, streaming data at metadata micro level. Contact me if anyone wishes to co-develop a prototype for purpose of reliable, accountable, and transparent decision support collaboration platform. I raise my hand. I will reach out to you, Lisa. Anyone else in the audience who wants to reach out to Lisa, please do. On the panel, if you guys, anyone wants to collaborate with her, here is Lisa, and she will be more than happy to help with you, to work with you. Let me quickly go to the next questions. I think Lisa started a conversation. I was looking at my LinkedIn, but very quickly, I will go and reach out to her very quickly. So next question is Martin Duran. Hi, Martin, how are you? I have a question. Does smart systems focused on diseases diagnosis have a real impact on lost jobs? Disease diagnosis, I don't think it should have an impact on lost jobs. I think what he means is that if a smart system diagnoses that you are sick or diagnoses a disease, then it may impact him losing his job, is what it is saying.
Okay, so I think maybe he meant, whether someone who's diagnosing diseases and now with AI, whether that person's jobs will go away. If that's what he's asking, then my response would be, we have worked with a hospital that needs to analyze 1,000 chest X-rays a day, and it's a very boring, very laborious task. And the hospital basically say, can you automate and remove 900 of this with a very high confidence that there's no problem. For those that you're not sure, our radiologist will take a look at it. So the human element is still there. It's just that with automation, the same group of people can handle a lot more jobs at a much higher accuracy. And I always like to say they can get to go home at 5 o'clock. They don't need to go home at 9 or 10 every night, right? So you can do a lot more with automation, basically.
Okay. Next question is from Ramesh Kadimila. Hi, Ramesh. How are you? Please explain about growth mindset we require to understand real-world problem statements and solutions towards AI. I think, Avik, you mentioned about the growth mindset.
Did I mention about it? I don't know. What is it?
You talked about that we need to have a growth mindset in terms of getting the AI models delivered and understanding the real-world problems.
So I'll take a stab at this. Yeah. So, I mean, growth mindset was a term that was really advocated by, I think it was Carol Dweck in her book Mindset, which Satya Nadella embraced completely as part of the foundational transformation of Microsoft. And it really speaks to this notion of, how do we break the bonds of having this fixed mindset that we do and embrace this notion of being learn-it-alls, continuous learning, being flexible and adaptable and agile enough to take on new information continuously. And that's what we're going to need in this world, in this AI first world, right? Because nobody knows where this technology is moving towards, what opportunities will be unlocked. And it speaks to, you mentioned it, Shirley, around what skills and traits do I want my children to be comfortable in knowing and learning at school, things that will allow them to be adaptable in any situation in future, how to think creatively, how to think critically, how to be confident in what they can do, because the change of pace, the pace of change is so much that we require a new mindset to embrace a better tomorrow.
Okay. Okay, I'll jump on to the next question very quickly. Chungmin Han. Hi, Chungmin. How are you? He says, do you think the higher level thinking can be implemented by AI if we have sufficient enough data, decision cases to train the AI model? Who wants to go for it? Brent?
I don't think so. I don't believe that that's actually the way that we train AI today, machine learning today. It's as Laurence points out, right? It's just math. It might be ever increasingly complicated math, but at the end of the day, an ML, an AI system is just a function approximator, and that's not higher level thinking. That's approximating a function. It might be a very complicated function, but it's not higher level thinking.
So what I would just add on to what Brent was saying just now is, let's be careful about how we come at this. And the reason I just highlight that is because I just need to make sure that I get this right. But the two examples I like to call out is, I think it was in 2004, two Harvard economists actually said there was no way it will all be possible for AI to ever be able to drive itself in the real world, right? That was in 2004. 15 years later, we're talking about the commercial, 16 years later, we're talking about the commercial readiness of autonomous vehicles. I think the same thing was applied to human speech recognition, that it would be impossible 15 years ago for AI to ever be able to understand and interpret human level speech. And yet now what we see is Cortana, Alexa, all of these, Siri, all of these systems are able to really understand us. So again, my previous comment that I highlighted around how we as humans are terrible at exponential thinking because we are wired to think linearly. We must be just very careful about, how we think about the world 10 years from now, because if we think about the world 10 years ago, the same sort of thinking was applied.
Okay. Anyone else wants to have a go?
Yeah. So I think, both Brent and Rudy is actually right. Today, AI, or let's be more specific, machine learning, especially deep learning, is just maths. And to get to creativity and so on, if it's just based on the current deep learning, I don't think we're going to get there. We still, the humans work with sometimes not just on pure data. There are rules and intuition and so on. Can they be codified? Rules, yes. Intuition, a bit harder, but eventually someone will figure out how to do that. So eventually, we will combine deep learning, we'll combine rules, we'll combine probabilistic reasoning, we'll combine new techniques and so on, right? And then that's how we probably will get closer to artificial general intelligence, AGI. And that's where maybe you start to see creativity. But I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. Depending on the literature you read, some will say by 2023, some will say not in the next 200 years.
So can I just add a quick one to that as well? Because it's actually interesting that it was created. I forget the company's name, but I know it was a company in the East that appointed their first AI algorithm that was a creative director. It was an ad agency in Hong Kong. And they gave this AI algorithm real customers, real projects to run, and they were supposed to come up with creative ads. And obviously the customer didn't know that whether it was humans or whether it was AI. And when the projects were presented to the customer ended up actually liking the creative ads that was created by the bot more than the ads that were created by humans. So when we talk about these notions of creativity and intuition and this, they are terms that are so nebulous because it means different things to different people across different geographies and cultures. So although we think these things are far-fetched and they're in the realms of science fiction, if we really do some investigation, you'll find that they are a lot closer to home as one might think. And that means that progress just goes up at an exponential rate.
Okay. Now, next question is from Gabriel Ajutum. Gabriel, I think you're the first person from Africa I have encountered, so thank you very much for coming online and asking a question. So there's a whole world of Africa which I never hear from, but this is the first time. Gabriel, thank you for being on the show. His question is, how will Africa survive in this AI revolution? I think, my personal view, does Africa have to survive? They should come out with flying colors. I think there's a lot of potential in Africa on that. What do you think, guys?
Yes.
Rudy?
So I will just take a one, because I teach a course on AI and society at my school, and there is something which I cover is the AI Readiness Index, on which Singapore is number one. So Laurence, you might already know about it. This is done by Oxford Insight, a London-based think tank. So if you see the amount of countries which are there on that index, I think the representation from Africa is definitely much lower. But there is a lot of efforts that is happening in the last 1 or 2 years. There is a lot of investment from China. There is a lot of investment from IBM and Microsoft and Google. They are setting up labs in a lot of the countries. So I think they are just a bit late to join the party, but I think we will see the whole scenario change in about 5 years' time, because you have to give about 1 or 2 years' time to fine-tune things for Africa. And I also know a few think tanks, like the German think tank GIZ. Their AI program is focused a lot only on Africa. So you're from SAP, so you might also know about that. The GIZ programs are focused a lot on the African continent. So there's a lot of action happening in Africa now. So I think, Gabriel, you are which country you are from? So again, because there's a lot of countries in Africa also, we cannot take a general call for everyone. Like what we saw for Asia also, there are a few countries like, say, China, Singapore, and Korea, which are leaders, but there are a lot of them which are lagging behind. So,
Okay, Rudy, you want to add something there, because you look after that place as well?
Yeah, and I mean, I am from South Africa, so I think there is a tremendous potential for growth, and Africa's ability to leapfrog as a result of a lack of pre-existing complexities that they don't have to deal with, right? So the massive opportunity that exists for real value to be added that could change lives significantly. So if you think about Industry 4.0 and how that's being embraced in the African manufacturing context, that's something that's really coming to the fore strongly there. I think something that we also need to be cognizant of is how there's these bright spots in Africa that's just completely running forward in the embrace of new technologies. So if you think about the East, such as Kenya, if you think about the Africa Singapore, which is Rwanda, I think, if you think about the SADC region in terms of South Africa, these countries are really having government-funded strategies and programs to make exponential technologies part of their economy, because they recognize the ability of these technologies to unlock true value for us as a continent overall. And my last comment on this is why it's so important is, so if you think about how the world is going to move from 3 billion people to about 7 billion people online over the next few years, if you think about the next areas of growth from the first world to the third world, where are those pockets of growth going to come from? And you will realize that it's going to come from developing countries and continents such as Africa. And this is why you'll find that companies like Facebook and Google are actually thinking about how do they provide internet connectivity to a continent like Africa, because that's where your user base is going to be sitting, that will drive the next waves of value for those organizations.
Perfect. Thank you, Rudy. And I would say, guys, I would love to have people from Africa come to the show and watch the show, learn from these guys. And there are lots of other guys who come onto the show and explain to the world about AI, data science, emerging technologies. you can have a good learning experience here that will help you in the long run as well. Very quickly, next question. Lisa New, she's saying, again, are any of you close to realizing an umbrella semantic technology for collaborative computationally assisted reasoning, cleaning big data for shared wisdom with cognitive, ethical, and evidence-based transparency? Mouthful of words. Anyone wants to have a go at that question?
I guess we need a separate session for just that question.
So, Lisa, I think it's a good idea to have a separate session on this, and we can have a technology and kind of machine learning session on this, because this is something really big. We can't be discussed in 5 minutes. So let's go to the next question. Linda Ginger. Hi, Linda. How are you? She says, I believe it will ultimately create new jobs. Currently, there is a skill gap we need to close. Absolutely, Linda. You're absolutely spot on. And I know that she's got other questions, so let's keep going. Next comment from Linda is, a traditional business I know who has digitally transformed itself has employed 10 people for each robotic capability it has adopted. That is big. So that means that it's increasing the number of jobs instead of decreasing them. Linda says, love the responses made here, guys. Thank you, Linda. Thank you to all 4 of you. She loves the responses. Now the question. Linda says, how can universities keep pace with changes to ensure their curriculum is relevant to future jobs? Or are universities an out-of-date education model? And this question goes to Avik, because he's the one who can answer this without any fear.
Yeah. So I think that the answer is quite simple. You have to make the student learn instead of making them do rote learning. If they're learning to create things on their own, and exactly the same answer which was given by the faculty for your daughter's school or college, wherever you went for the interview. If the person is creating something, today in a different scenario, and the person is trained to do that in a thought and has a thought process for it, he or she can do it in a different scenario also. So I think that is what we have to bring in. If you have to work with 5 people, how well can you collaborate and come to a consensus so that you can do the work faster instead of, say, you doing it alone? This is a collaboration skill. How can you think strategically to break up your task into smaller tasks and delegate to people? I think these are the key elements that we have to think about, and this has to be inculcated in the curriculum, whether you're teaching physics, chemistry, maths, or programming, or computer science. I think this aspect has to be brought into those things. I think once you have those courses, then the technology will change. Now we see technology change at a very, very fast rate, and we are all talking of AI and AI jobs. But 10 years down the line, we might be talking about something else, some other technologies, and AI might be obsolete by that time. So who knows?
Okay. I'll very quickly make a comment, and I know it's getting late, and we need to stop at some point in time. The questions are still coming, and I think people are enjoying the show and enjoying all the responses from you guys. I think in India, I think they've got the AI as a curriculum subject in year 10 itself. So there are some changes happening at global level as well. And Lisa New has got a comment to that. She says, Linda Ginger, they are outdated as metadata is the microcosmos of wisdom, creation and improvement in virtual education, research, industry, and governance teams, where data becomes useful. Perfect. Thank you, Lisa. Lisa also says, robots will not take over if humanity prevails, as only us can give them overall control. I beg you not to. Okay. Linda Ginger says, AI is proving to be highly successful in venture capital. A food for thought, maybe that's another show in the making. AI in venture capitalist areas. Okay. I will quickly go to a question from YouTube. Soumya Bhardwaj, he says, what are sectors which will be most impacted by AI in the next few years? Guys, that is a quick question for you guys. Tell us.
Very quickly, I think something like transportation is going to be massively disrupted, right? Whether it's ground transportation, if you think about just the quick leap that it goes to flights. Just speaking to pilots, a lot of their long haul flights are actually very much automated. I just read in the news last week that we are now going to have one of our first fighter pilot dogfights where you have a completely autonomous AI fighter jet that will be competing with a human pilot, right? So already we can see this transition happening. So in terms of industry, autonomous weapon systems, we're talking about transportation. Nobody talks a lot about autonomous shipping, but that's actually a massive one as well. So that would be just a quick one off the top of my head that I can think of.
I was about to say supply chain, autonomous shipping. Yeah.
Laurence?
I would say in healthcare and medical.
Healthcare, medical? Avik?
So I think it is all sectors. It is just up to our creativity to apply it in that sector. There are some sectors which are more digital. So if it's already digital, then it becomes easier and it's very low hanging to apply the AI aspect, like say banking or insurance or telecom, those industries. But if it's far from digital, then it will just take a longer time. But I think everything will eventually have an impact of AI.
Okay. I will very quickly close. There are a couple of quick ones, and then I'll just close this. Linda Ginger says, singularity is likely to occur, in my opinion. Yes, that's true. Okay. Seng Hui So says, the discussion is based on current place and time. 10 years from now could be a different conversation. Absolutely. And I think we all agreed with that comment as we think, yes. Lisa says, I believe only humanity at its essence won't be AI imitable. I think guys agree. There was a question from you guys. I think Avik, you asked to Gabriel, where is he from? He's from Kenya. He's mentioned that.
Yes.
Thank you, Gabriel. Martin Duran says, thank you very much. Lisa says, Africa requires ethical AI for paradigm shifts. And she is a South African too. That's to you, Rudy. And finally, Seng Hui So says, well said, Snell. So these are all the questions I had. I think I ran them through very, very quickly. I must have missed a few, but I think we are hitting the second hour, which is quite unusual, but this is a very popular, I think, topic for people to listen and talk about. So there were lots of questions and there were lots of comments. Okay, finally, before I go, one statement to summarize it all, guys, one by one. I start with Avik this time. Avik, how do you summarize AI and jobs, the impact of AI and jobs in one sentence?
Augmented role of AI will help us do more value-added role and increasing our productivities.
Okay. Laurence?
AI is here to help us do our job better.
Okay. Brent?
AI is going to disrupt jobs. We have to be prepared for it.
Rudy?
Change is coming, whether you like it or not.
Thank you very much. Thank you, guys. Thank you very much. Thank you for your time. I think it was a pleasure having you. And Brent, I know it's 2 a.m. Being on the show.
Brent.
It's 100% worth my time to stay up and listen to the panelists and y'all. I do very much enjoy this.
Good stuff.
Yes,
Before we go, thank you from Lisa. Lisa's been on the show and asking questions and making comments. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you very much. Okay, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, all of you.
Thank you.
I'll see you very, very soon. Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Yes. Bye.
Okay, guys. Those were the 4 great leaders in the AI space, and it was great talking to them. Some positives I took away. One thing I know, that the productivity will be amplified, whether we like it or not. That's what's going to happen. There'll be greater need for channeling the creative spirit in us so that, that can work around. And there'll be different ways of learning as we go forward with the new education system that is going to come into play, where people will be so much busy with the new technology that is coming and intelligent technology that is coming. Well, I'm trying to adapt myself. And when I was studying, calculator was a big no-no in my school days. But for my daughter, calculator is a new norm. She uses the calculator like anything. So things are changing. We need to learn from that. And that's where we are. Thank you very much. And I'll see you next week again on The Shelly Show. Bye now.